We've all heard the stories of near-death experiences, the tunnel, the warm, loving light, family members welcoming you home. But what if that light isn't heaven? The Gnostics warned of a false light, a mechanism designed to wipe your memory and recycle your soul back into this prison planet. Today, we're looking at the disturbing possibility that the afterlife experience people describe might not be an escape. It might be a reset. The comforting story. We're told modern NDE reports often sound peaceful. People describe leaving their bodies, traveling through a tunnel, and being embraced by a loving presence made of light. They're told it's not your time and sent back. It feels comforting, reassuring, almost too perfect. But in ancient Gnostic cosmology, beings of light are not always what they appear to be. Some are described as Archons, rulers of the material realm whose role is to keep consciousness trapped in cycles of ignorance, not through torture, through illusion. The Gnostic warning about false light. In texts like the Apocryphon of John and the hypostasis of the Archons, the material world is described as a system designed to keep souls spiritually asleep. The Archons don't just rule through suffering, they rule through deception, a false sense of salvation, a counterfeit heaven, a light that feels divine but leads back into forgetfulness. Because the greatest prison is the one you don't know you're in. And if a soul, after death, is drawn toward a radiant presence without awareness, it may not be ascending. It may be agreeing to return. Memory wipe or spiritual recycling. One of the strangest patterns in NDE reports is this. People say they are shown their life review. They feel overwhelming emotion. Then they're told they have more to learn and are sent back. From a Gnostic lens, this looks less like divine judgment and more like psychological processing before reincarnation, a cosmic debrief, a reset, a wiping of deeper memory. Because if souls remembered their true origin, beyond matter, beyond time, the system would collapse. Awakened beings don't reincarnate blindly, they choose consciously. Why the light feels loving. Here's the unsettling part. The trap doesn't feel like a trap, it feels like home. Because deception works best when it uses your own expectations. In Gnostic thought, the divine source is beyond form, beyond image, beyond emotional manipulation. But the rulers of this realm can simulate transcendence, a being of radiant light, voices of loved ones, a sense of unconditional acceptance, not to save you, but to convince you to come back. If this perspective is expanding how you see life, death, and consciousness, take a second to like the video and subscribe. This channel dives into the hidden layers of spiritual history most people never hear about. And it only grows with your support. Now, let's go deeper. Some Gnostic interpretations describe the soul passing through layers of reality after death. Each layer contains forces that attempt to confuse, distract, or reclaim the soul before it reaches higher awareness. The tunnel of light could symbolically represent a funneling mechanism, not upward, but inward, back into embodiment, back into limitation, back into the cycle. Because if souls simply left and didn't return, the material system would lose its power source, consciousness itself. Why this idea was suppressed. Teachings like this are deeply threatening to institutional religion because if salvation isn't granted by an external authority, if the afterlife isn't automatically liberation, if awareness determines your destiny, then spiritual responsibility returns to the individual. And systems built on fear, obedience, and blind faith lose control. That's why many Gnostic texts were buried, banned, or destroyed, not because they were evil, because they were empowering. The Gnostics didn't teach fear of death. They taught clarity at death, awareness, lucidity, recognition of illusion. The goal wasn't to avoid light. It was to see through false light, to remember your origin beyond the material realm, to recognize deception even when it feels comforting, to choose freedom instead of returning unconsciously. In other words, salvation wasn't belief. It was awakening. If this idea challenges what you thought you knew about the afterlife, don't stop here. Because in the next video, we break down who the Archons really are, how they shape human perception while we're alive, and the inner method Gnostics use to escape their influence. Watch that next. It connects everything you just heard. Like, subscribe, and step deeper into the hidden side of spiritual history. Because once you see the system, you stop walking into the light blindly.